Mr. Darryl David.
Mr. Speaker, sir, the Foreign Interference Countermeasures Act, or FICA, broadly aims to counter foreign attempts to influence the domestic politics of Singapore through information campaigns that shape public's opinions on topics of interest to Singapore and the use of local proxies to influence political outcomes. Given the nature of FICA, there are expectedly numerous questions from various quarters on what FICA is, what does it cover or not cover, who or what is affected by it, how it will change the current operating models of NGOs that are part of a larger global body, or whether FICA will end up as a political muzzle on active citizenry and citizens' participation in politics. These questions are clearly important and should be thoroughly addressed and debated so that all Singaporeans will have a clear understanding of what the Act entails. Mr. Speaker, sir, the interference of foreign actors in the affairs of other countries is not new. History is replete with examples of how different states and state-sponsored actors had tried to influence the course of political and social development in other states. In modern times, foreign influence might take the overt form of embassies and foreign chambers of commerce lobbying and advocating for their interests. It may also take the covert form of actions such as state-sponsored actors conducting black ops and clandestine disinformation campaigns that sow discontent and distrust between the government and people and discord among citizens on contentious social issues. Such ops can also create an impression of mass support amongst the country's citizens for a foreign country's position on important bilateral issues. Such pernicious foreign influence creates a drip effect that can change the attitudes of citizens towards their own government and even towards their own fellow citizens, leading to the destabilization of the country in the long run and the weakening of its position vis-à-vis that of the foreign country that could be behind exerting the covert influence. This is why an open economy and a small country like Singapore needs intelligence and counterintelligence resources to help manage such threats. In the hyper-connected world that we are in today, everyone, individuals, organizations, and governments are susceptible to online attacks. Such attacks can be conducted by hackers who are motivated by monetary gains or by state-linked groups that are trying to make a political statement. For example, the hacking of Sony Pictures, an entertainment company, in 2014 by the Guardians of Peace, who supposedly had links with a North Asian nation. Cyber attacks can be sponsored by foreign states as part of political espionage to retrieve embarrassing information about politicians or classified government information from rival states. And of course, we all know about the biggest attack that Singapore was subject to in 2018, when the personal particulars of more than 1.5 million patients were stolen, and the health records of Prime Minister Lee was also targeted specifically by these hackers. Now, while it's never been officially reported, it was hinted, Mr. Speaker, sir, that the cyber attack then was likely to have been orchestrated by state-linked hackers. So my question is, if there is sufficient evidence that a foreign entity, be it a government or organization, is behind certain activities that are deemed harmful or detrimental to Singapore, how transparent will the government be in making that information known to Singaporeans? I know that Singapore has always tried to be diplomatically sensitive when disclosing information on foreign influence. I do understand the need to be diplomatically sensitive, but if we were to act against the agent of that particular foreign entity, then should we not also make that entity's identity and activities known so that we can, as a country, take a particular united position against that particular other country? For example, if country X is behind certain activities that could be deemed detrimental to Singapore, and country X is known to be popular with Singaporeans, either as a tourist destination or perhaps a country that Singaporeans tend to purchase goods and services from, then exposing this country as a country that does not have Singapore's and Singaporeans' interests at heart might allow us, as Singaporeans, as one people, to take a stand of solidarity and take a position against country X. After all, why would we want to contribute to the economy of a country who is determined to affect Singapore negatively? I said earlier that Singapore is a small country, and as a small country, it might not have much of an impact on that particular country's economy, but I believe it is important to take a principled stand to show in a show of collective Singaporean solidarity that you cannot mess with us, you should not mess with us. My next point is the countermeasures from donor activities funding from overseas sources for non-governmental organizations or NGOs. Now, overseas funding for politically significant persons or PSPs, political parties or for organizations involved in political activities are clearly undesirable. They are clearly undesirable. Clearly, we should not allow foreign entities to indirectly influence or get involved in Singapore politics via donations they make to PSPs. I believe every member in this House would agree with me broadly on this point. However, I would like to seek clarifications from the Minister on the position regarding NGOs, especially these NGOs are local chapters of a global NGO. So what would the government's position be if the local chapters of global NGOs happen to be supporting a particular cause that might not be regarded, or rather that might be regarded as not being fully in alignment with what is best for Singapore? Because sometimes those issues are a bit grey. They are matters that are open to debate and interpretation. With FICA in place, would these NGOs be classified as agents of influence and be ordered to cease their operations here? I would also like to seek clarification on the government's position regarding local chapters of global NGOs that are currently receiving regular funding support from overseas donors and their parent NGOs. With FICA, would these NGOs then be forbidden from accepting funding from those channels, thus affecting the ability of these local chapters to operate in Singapore? I ask this, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, because there are NGOs that might be receiving overseas funding or support that are doing work, good work, that is beneficial to Singaporeans and the Singaporean community as a whole. And we would not want them or the work that they are doing to be inadvertently affected by this act. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, the threat of foreign interference is real, more so in today's hyper-connected world, where we are bombarded every day by an overwhelming amount of information on social media and on digital media. Some of this information could be deliberate attempts by nefarious foreign entities to shape and influence our opinions on certain social and political topics. In an ideal world, we would be discerning enough to differentiate between genuine information versus attempts to influence. But sadly, we are living in less than ideal world, and although not perfect, FICA is still useful legislation to help safeguard Singapore against foreign interference. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the debate over FICA could be polarizing. However, we must not let the debate over the form of the Act or partisan politics detract us from the spirit of what the Act intends to do. We need to acknowledge that the core spirit of the Act is aimed at protecting our country from foreign influences that might destabilize our society or undermine the national interests of Singapore. And with that in mind, I end my speech in support of the Act. Thank you.